In the world of African politics, sanity can sometimes be a fleeting luxury. Gladys Ganda of Malawi's opposition DPP learned this the hard way, daring to praise President Chakwera's progress, only to be swiftly reassigned for her treasonous common sense. Meanwhile, Uganda's Yoweri Museveni, the master of eternal incumbency, claims the opposition magically inflated votes, despite nearly 4 decades of iron rule. And in Guinea-Bissau, President Embaló contemplates early retirement, after surviving 2 coups. I also chat to Republican journalist Algeto Greg about his recent trip to China. And as usual, your TikTok of the week is right here. My name is Ashwin Berry. It's time for Second Take. Meet Gladys Ganda, former director of elections for Malawi's main opposition party, DPP. Gladys Ganda made the unforgivable mistake of praising President Lazarus Chakwera. I mean, how dare she? Imagine a member of the opposition, no less, daring to commend the sitting president for what she sees as development, and worse, implying that leadership is about results rather than tribal loyalty or party slogans. The horror must have rippled through the DPP ranks like an earthquake, as Ganda's words of satisfaction with Chakwera's leadership sent party loyalists into panic mode, implying that a president is delivering results regardless of region. Blasphemy of the highest order. It didn't take long for the fallout to reach Ganda's office. After all, such praise is practically treason in the DPP playbook. The party that to some Malawians is known more for its expertise in opposing for opposition's sake rather than actual governance could not tolerate this shocking display of common sense. Within days, the wheels of political punishment were set in motion, and out came the carefully orchestrated reassignment. Naturally, the press release was delicately framed. This wasn't a demotion, no. Ganda was simply being reassigned to a loftier title, presidential advisor. As we know, there isn't a better way to silence someone than to put them in a role that sounds important but carries as much influence as an intern's coffee order. So, let's not pretend this isn't exactly what it looks like. Ganda's reassignment is as transparent as it is cynical. She praised the wrong person in the wrong party, and now she'll spend her time advising from a safe distance. Her once prominent role in electoral strategy swept under the rug. In DPP fashion, loyalty is valued over logic, and anyone who steps out of line gets a shiny new title and a quieter seat at the table. Yoweri Museveni, the man who has mastered the art of eternal incumbency. Now, he's found a new conspiracy to pin on his political rivals, alleging that they inflated their votes by 1 million. Yes, the opposition, already smeared, beaten, and jailed, somehow managed to magically inflate their numbers under the nose of Museveni's regime. Never mind that Museveni's own electoral commission gave him 59% of the vote. The timing of his latest claim, conveniently placed at a Thanksgiving service for a late general, feels as smooth as a well-oiled propaganda machine. If one didn't know better, they'd think Museveni has confused state events with personal rallies. And isn't it rich for Museveni, who sat on his throne for nearly 4 decades, to accuse others of electoral fraud? The man has treated Uganda like his personal game of Monopoly, amending the constitution when the rules no longer suit him. The same electoral system he keeps in his back pocket is now suddenly a victim of negligence. But of course, the lapses of his electoral agents conveniently resulted in Bobi Wine, who has the audacity to challenge the autocrat, gaining votes. But what's more intriguing is Museveni's newfound reliance on evidence, which naturally he hasn't shown to anyone. Surely it must be hiding in the same vault where the evidence of every other opposition crime or lack thereof remains stashed. Meanwhile, the police continued their side job as Museveni's personal security detail, ensuring Bobi Wine and his supporters are reminded of their place. The police, that noble institution, have certainly made a name for themselves. What's a peaceful protest without a few heads cracked, a few bones broken? And when Bobi Wine finds himself once again in the hospital, perhaps he should be thankful he wasn't hit by anything deadlier this time around. A little tear gas in the leg, the regime's way of saying, "We're still watching you, Bobby boy." The real masterstroke of Museveni's regime is convincing the world that he's the victim of an opposition coup while holding the gun, metaphorically, and in Bobi Wine's case, quite literally. It's a tale as old as the regime itself. Cry foul, keep the throne, and call it democracy. Wink. Guinea-Bissau's President Umaro Sissoco Embalo's recent declaration that he may not seek re-election in November is a curious move, but for a leader who has survived not just one, but two coup attempts in Guinea-Bissau's notoriously unstable political climate, I have to say, I totally get it. No one should normalize almost getting shot at work. I guess unless you're an American teacher. Yeah? Okay. The man has grown tired of dodging bullets, both literal and political, and now seeks the tranquil life of a statesman who retires early, a rarity in his part of the world. I would go through the list of presidents that have decided to stay longer than expected, but there is only so much time you can spend on the show. So it is King Jong-un, King Mswati III, Robert Mugabe, Teodoro Obiang Nguema, Alexander Lukashenko, Bashar al-Assad, Yoweri Museveni, and Paul Biya, just to name a few. Perhaps the most intriguing part of President Embaló's announcement is that it was not his decision to step down, but the fact that the advice to do so came from his wife, who knew that behind every coup-dodging president was a partner advocating for a more peaceful life. Not me. I paid attention to Grace Mugabe shattering that idea. Now, Embaló, who came into power in 2020 after narrowly defeating his rival Domingos Simoes Pereira, has ruled with the kind of tenacity one would expect from a former army general. Yet his leadership has often felt more like a tug-of-war with parliament than a cohesive administration. Dissolving parliament not once but twice was certainly one way to assert dominance. The fact that legislative elections in 2022 foiled his ambitious plans for constitutional reforms that would have conveniently given him more power, demonstrates the limits of his strategy. It turns out that even in a semi-presidential system where power is shared between the president and parliament, you can't always rewrite the rules to suit your agenda. Who knew? Not me. I paid attention to Robert Mugabe. Republican journalist Alberto Greg joined me for a conversation as he had returned fresh from China with some very intriguing insights. Trust me, it's not what you expect. Enjoy. Welcome back to Second Take. I'm with Alberto Greg, who is a journalist for Republican, and Alberto and I had been talking throughout the week, and he recently came back from China, Chongqing.
That's right.
Chongqing. And through our conversations, I realized that there's a lot of insights that I'd like to share with the Second Take audience about China itself and some of the misconceptions that we may have of China with regards to productivity, development in society. So I'll get to, first of all, just general, how was China?
It was incredible. It was mind-blowing. The scale, the scope, but also the general peacefulness and friendliness and organization. It was really mind-blowing.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So let's get into the details. What was your first impression of Chongqing?
It's huge. It's incredibly huge. I mean, there are 32 million permanent residents in that city. It's just one city. Yes.
So that's like at least 30 million, around 30 million more than Namibia as a whole. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And the city is one of the few inland municipalities which is controlled directly from the central government. It includes various provinces and regions. So it's not all urbanized. There are also rural areas, but it's all interconnected and it's very accessible. Even the most mountainous areas. It's known as the city of mountains, as well as the city of rivers, because it's at the place where the mighty Yangtze River meets with the Jiangling River, and there are many rivers in that city, but also many mountains. So even when you're on the highways, you're often driving through tunnels that cut through mountains. Or you'd be high up over, driving across a bridge over huge gorges and valleys.
Stunning place.
It's a stunning place.
I like talking to people who just traveled, because then you talk about things like I've been there, right? Singing down river and stuff. I'm like, yeah, that sounds but that's really cool. Okay, so this talk, Belt and Road Initiative, what's been its impact on Chongqing's development?
It's had a huge impact. First of all, let me say that I was there on invitation from the All China Journalists Association to attend the Belt and Road Journalism Forum 2024 in Chongqing. Chongqing has a long history of international trade. The city is over 3,000 years old. It's been the capital of China 3 times. It's not currently the capital.
So it rotates? Well, I mean, obviously not rotates, but I mean, is that changeable?
Well, China's had a huge, long history. So over the years, depending on which dynasty was in power and shifts in political power. But on 3 different occasions over the 3,000 years that the city has been established, it was the capital. And it was the end point of the ancient Silk Road. So the Belt and Road Initiative has kind of revived that ancient tradition, and it connects with the China-Europe Railway, railway line that stretches from Chongqing to Germany. Continuously. And then it also gives access via the Yangtze River to the huge port cities of China, on the eastern coast. It also gives access to the south, and there's a railway that connects it to Russia in the north. And you can, via air links, that's how I got there. I flew from Windhoek to Addis Ababa, and thanks to Ethiopian Airlines, which connects Africans to anywhere in the world, and I really recommend that airline. They flew me to China, and then in China, I used a local domestic airline to fly to Chongqing.
That's very interesting. I mean, when you think about China, especially when it comes to rail, they do incredible things. I remember looking at an article the other time about a train that goes 1,234 kilometers in about 4 hours. And I was like, imagine if I was going to Swakop, you know what I mean? And we had that kind of system over here. It feels so efficient, particularly when it comes to countries trying to constantly grow their economies and interconnectivity.
And even in Chongqing itself, in the city center itself, there's a monorail system which can give you access all over the city. And they also have an underground system. They have buses, and they have taxis and cars, lots of highways. So there's a real variety in terms of public transport. It's very efficient, and you can bank on it.
You can bank on it. Speaking of things you can bank on, it seems like Africa in general takes on modernization in sacrifice of traditional methods, which feels like it's the opposite in China. How do you feel Chongqing has built on its history?
That was one of my big insights there, was that ancient China and modern China is the same China. And the reason I came to that conclusion is because they build the modern technology that they adapt or adopt based on the historic and ancient traditions and technologies that have been developed over thousands of years. One case in point was a factory that I visited. It's a highly automated factory. They produce pickled vegetable products. And the vegetable, which it's a mustard type plant vegetable, which they base most of their products on, is endemic to Chongqing. And in that area, people have been subsiding off that vegetable for thousands of years. Now, this highly automated plant only has 12 employees. But 12. But the inputs come from over 1 million small-scale farmers in that area, in that region. So they provide income and a living for small-scale farmers who very much do it on the traditional basis, with support from the government and from the company also, because the company is reliant on their inputs So the company keeps track of them and looks at whatever their current situation is and provides whatever support they need to make sure that that family farm is producing, because the factory at the end of the line requires that family farm to contribute regularly. And that factory produces thousands of products, exports all over the world to more than 50 countries, to foreigners who like the product, but also to Chinese all over the world who like that product. And they've got a much bigger support base, customer base within the country. It's a famous product.
Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. Just, I mean, just being able to, you know, to help local farmers while still pushing the economy, pushing products out there where they are needed. I mean, needless to say, Africa could benefit greatly with regards to this. And, you know, I was talking to you earlier before we, you know, came on screen, that, you know, it seems like Africa could benefit a lot from mirroring some of its friends as opposed to always just getting quote unquote help. Yes. Now, something that I'm really proud of, you know, as a Namibian resident, is the opening of the Maritime Museum in Luderitz. Yes. But you visited an underwater museum. Yes, in Chongqing, under the Yangtze River, there is a very famous rock. It's called the White Crane Ridge. And for 1,200 years, the level of the river has been recorded on that rock in order for them to predict the coming harvest, because it's linked to the weather and the whole system. So after the building of the Three Gorges Dam, the river level rised significantly, but they decided that they wanted to preserve and also to preserve access to this historic site. So they built an underwater museum, which in which they control the water pressure so that it doesn't cause further erosion. It basically preserves it. You go down an escalator, but it's a long, long escalator that you go down. Into the water? You go under the water. The whole thing is underwater. They've got divers who go down regularly to clean the lights and make sure that from inside, when you're looking through the port windows, you can see clearly. But you can see the markings, and there's a lot of information provided by guides and displays all over the museum, which gives you historical context and explains to you what the different symbols mean. Like there's two fish engraved next to each other, and the one fish has a flower in its mouth, and the other fish has a leaf which droops down. So when the water level reaches the eyes of the one fish, it predicts a certain environmental period for the next season. And when it reaches the level of the other fish, it predicts the better one. You know, so it's really incredible. And this is where archiving is so important. And of course, Africa does have a disadvantage of having its history interrupted. And part of the way that was done was essentially making such information unavailable. And so I don't know, you know what I mean? Like it's nice to see what it looks like when you've got all your stuff. And of course, you know, we do have access to a lot of ancient African practices. It would be good to see a lot of these practices and a lot of this history just being brought into the modern world, you know. So the new international land-sea trade corridor. Let's talk about that. How has it improved China's connection to the world? I think that China is incredibly connected to the world because of the trade corridor, but also because of the synchronization of all of their different trade avenues. And in Chongqing, it really demonstrates how all those things are brought together. You know, I went to a container freight hub terminal. And last year, they handled 702,000 TEUs in that specific thing. Already for the first 6 months, that has increased by 13%. But the terminal is able to handle 850,000. So they are working towards that. And it's so high-tech, you know. I went to the control room, and there is a huge display screen which is mirrored via the internet.
for a link that they supply to all of their business partners. And via that link, you can monitor your specific container as it travels along the route. And it also provides you with everything from currency fluctuation, trade statistics, all sorts of information that you can use on the spot to do whatever is best for your business. But you can even watch your specific container via CCTV directly via that website. So you can see the state of it.
Yes.
Pick different angles, different
that's
cameras.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Everything you're talking about makes me want to go to China. And I believe that's the goal. So, so naturally I have to ask, how has tourism developed? How did you view the tourism scene in China?
They've really developed tourism a lot. Firstly, they focused on their own market. I mean, they've got 1.4 billion people. So it's a huge market that they can exploit. But for instance, in Wulong province, which is a sub-province of Chongqing, there was one place, the Fairy Mountain Resort, which is top of the range. Yeah, really, it's an incredible resort. But that resort was a village of 300 people. And it was a very impoverished village. And from, in 2017, the government announced that that whole province has been lifted out of poverty.
Yikes.
The per capita income of the province when they started specifically there was $200 a year. And it has increased tenfold.
Wow.
And of the 300,000 people employed in that province at the moment, 100,000 of them now work in tourism.
Wow. And this is from 2017?
Well, it's up to 2017. It was 10-year period. So from 2007 to 2017.
Incredible.
They really transformed the whole project. And it was part of a nationwide agenda policy to lift people out of poverty. They assigned more than a million, I think it was 1.3 million officials to tackle this problem. And in the process, 1,800 CPC members, that's the ruling party members, actually lost their lives. And I asked the professor who was informing us, what was the life-threatening circumstance that claimed these lives? And he explained to me that some of these communities were living in very difficult to reach places. So on those roads, there were landslides and rock slides and other kind of natural difficulties, threats.
Hindrances,
Yes, which claimed their lives. But I think it goes to show the commitment to realizing the dream. That these officials actually had to put their lives on the line, and many of them, 1,800, lost their lives in the process. But now China has officially, in 2021, they announced that they've eradicated abject poverty amongst their population. And what's even more impressive is they're not stopping there. They have now announced that the next goal is moderate prosperity for the entire population, which they intend to reach by 2050.
Tell us about moderate prosperity. To the entrepreneurs out there.
Well, I think there are still levels within the Chinese society. Some people are richer and some people are poorer. But already with the elimination of abject poverty, I mean, when I was there on the streets of Chongqing, I saw nobody with a torn T-shirt or broken shoes. I did see some old people who were collecting plastic bottles for recycling. But the young people tell me it's mostly because those old people have lived through difficult times and they want to keep busy. They want to keep doing things.
Stay active.
Yes. So it's not out of necessity. It's not because there's no food at home or there's no place to call home. It's a sense of duty. It's a sense of duty. It's a sense of purpose. It's about keeping active. And obviously it will have an impact on the environment. Recently, since President Xi Jinping made a famous speech in 2005 where he coined the phrase, lucid waters and lush mountains are invaluable assets. The whole Chinese approach to the environment has changed. And they don't talk so much about environmental protection. They talk about ecological protection. I like that because it includes humanity, it includes development.
Yes.
It's not separating the two things, you know. It's looking at ways in which you can still preserve your environment, your animals and your plants, but in harmony with your people. You don't have to exclude the two.
Yes.
And you can develop them both together.
Together.
You know, in Chongqing, they boast of 67% forest coverage.
Wow.
And when I was there, really, I saw
a lot of forest.
There's a lot of forest.
All right.
You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, as we wrap this up, let's say, you know, Namibia, we're going to elections.
Yes.
We're going to be choosing a new president, whether we like to or not, it's going to be a new president.
Yes.
If you were brought onto the consulting table for whoever the president is, what's the one thing you would want them to consider adapting from what you learned in Chongqing?
I think the first thing is that we must acknowledge the incredible progress made by our previous president, who was able to get Xi Jinping to agree that we as countries would interact on an equal level, even though they're a huge country and we're a tiny country in comparison. But what that means practically is that the Chinese will come here to do business here on the terms that they find here. If they find that our people are corruptible, that our system allows for
maneuvering, loophole,
yes, then they will do that.
Yes.
But if they find that our people are upright and they demand that you do business based on our laws, then they will do that.
Right.
It's up to us.
It's up to us.
So we need to really be serious about it being up to us. We mustn't allow us to be the reason why we have the short end of the stick.
All right.
If we stand up and live out our constitution, our ideals, if we embody who we want to be, then they will follow suit and they will do business with us on those terms. They're doing business with the world, whether we like it or not.
Or not, yes.
Yeah, and everywhere they go, because they are committed to their goals, and their goals are ambitious.
Yes.
You know, there was a quote that I did mention in my story, which was in Republican on Thursday.
Yes.
From the professor who gave us a lot of insights, and he said that if there are obstacles, we will overcome them. And if there are things that the world demands, we will do our best to learn them from other countries. So it just goes to illustrate their determination to reach their goals regardless. And I think that we can also take a feather from that cap. We can also emulate that. We must be clear about our goals. We must have our priorities, number one, number two, number three, and then commit to those goals regardless. We mustn't sell out along the way. We mustn't put our own ambitions or benefit above the goal.
Yes.
Because when you make the cake bigger, everybody gets a bigger slice. So it's not necessary for anybody to want to take the whole cake. No.
Make the cake bigger.
Make the cake bigger.
So that everybody can eat.
Yes.
And I know Xi Jinping didn't mention it with regards to lucid waters, but you won't find fish rot there. That's been a chat with Algeto. Thank you very much for informing us on Second Take. So, musician Akon once made some big promises to Africa and Senegal in particular, but he seems to be having an issue coming through on his word. Here's our TikTok of the week from TRT Africa.
Senegal has issued an ultimatum to musician Akon to start building on a 136-acre parcel of land granted to him in 2020, or 90% of the land will be reverted to government. 4 years ago, Senegal granted the land to Akon to develop a city with amenities including hospitals, a resort, a university, an entertainment park, a shopping mall, a police station, a solar power plant, and apartments. The land is located in the coastal area of Mbodien, some 120 kilometers southeast of Senegal's capital, Dakar. Akon pledged to start construction on the land as soon as possible, with job creation and boosting Senegal's economy top on his mind. The Senegalese-American musician said the project's first phase, costing $6 billion, was to be completed in 2023. The completion date was, however, postponed to 2025, with ACON citing COVID-19 pandemic as the reason for delaying construction. The rest of the city was to be gradually built, with the entire project's completion date set as 2030. ACON said that upon completion, the city would be a sanctuary for African Americans seeking to reconnect with their African roots. However, until now, the site remains undeveloped, with livestock often grazing on the land. Only one concrete block marking the project's foundation can be seen at the location. Senegal, through the Coastal Tourist Zone Development Company, SAPCO, has threatened to repossess the land, saying ACON has failed to remit payments for holding the land. The singer, however, does not have title deed to the land. ACON's team claims efforts are ongoing to clear and map out the land for plant construction. In late 2023, ACON said in an interview on BBC that his project in Senegal was 100,000% moving and that his critics would be put to shame. However, a number of people in Bodien village have lost hope in the project. 51-year-old ACON had banked on investors to pool resources for the city's construction, but according to ACON's team, investment pledges weren't honored. Kenya's Julius Mwale had been cited as the project's lead investor. ACON's net worth is unclear, but several reports suggest it could be ranging from 40 to 80 million US dollars. As the fate of ACON City in Senegal hangs in the balance, uncertainties are also rife in Uganda, where the government offered ACON 640 acres of land to build a city worth $6 billion US dollars. The offer was proposed to ACON after he met President Yoweri Museveni in Uganda in April 2021. Residents of Mukono town in central Uganda, where the project is planned, have however rejected the government's move to offer land to ACON, saying it is their ancestral possession. Just like in Senegal, construction of ACON City in Uganda is yet to begin. ACON was born to Senegalese parents who later relocated to New Jersey in the United States.
And so, as the curtain falls on this whirlwind tour of African politics, we are left with the sobering realization that logic and loyalty rarely occupy the same stage. From Gladys Ganda's demotion for the crime of critical thinking to Museveni's eternal reign upheld by accusations of the very fraud he's mastered, we see leaders who defy the odds and often reality itself. Yet, somewhere in Guinea-Bissau, President Embaló contemplates retirement like it's a new frontier, proving that even in politics, there comes a time when dodging bullets isn't as attractive as dodging responsibility. After all, who wouldn't want to retire after their shift is done? You don't always need a second take. Good night.